So do you ever wonder how in the world the government just keeps paying for everything? Like, no, honestly, like we take in 5 trillion and we spend 7. Do you wonder how they generate $2 trillion? You might have heard myths where it literally, they snap their fingers. It's printed from thin air. Maybe like they just make it up. Other countries just give us the money. But do you actually wonder how in the world this happens? Because if you're like me and you're sitting here going, we're $37 trillion in debt, our spending is out of control as a country, we can't maintain it, we can't pay our bills, something seems off here. But who in the world would keep giving us money, trillion after trillion after trillion every year, and allow us to get into the debt? And you also have to wonder, is this could not end badly if we don't fix this, right? So today, you want to buckle up. We're going to go through it all. We're going to go through the deficits, the debt, the money printing, and basically, I'm going to explain to you actually how this whole thing works. And honestly, it's pretty impressive how it works. And I'm going to answer the question, why would anybody keep giving us money if we're this much in debt? Yeah, we're the greatest country. Yeah, we pay our bills on time, but think about it. This is crazy, right? It's like an unlimited credit card in a company that is out of control spending. Makes a lot of income, has a lot of debt, and definitely needs some correction. Hey, what's up? My name is Kenny Simpson. If we've never met, I've focused on 1 to 4 unit financing. That means I help you buy or refinance 1 to 4 unit properties. Been doing that 20 years, funded $1 billion of loans, helped over 5,000 clients. And I shoot videos like this, whether we talk about, how to help a self-employed buyer get a loan, or what's going on with interest rates, or what's happening in the real estate market, or just want to tell you and just want to help you learn a little bit more about how the government's plumbing works and how the money moves, and why at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you why it matters, how this affects housing, how this affects interest rates, and more importantly, why it's so critical as a country. People start to understand this stuff and we really fix it before things get out of control. And all those things that you and I work for so hard, if we keep this up, how we can end up hitting a wall, a depression, and all that we work so hard for 401ks, our stocks, our equity in our houses, business, all that stuff, how could that come crumbling down if we actually do not fix this problem? But before we fix a problem and before people really get their heads wrapped around it, we have to understand it. So in this video, I'm going to dive into how the government gets in about the debts, the deficit, how they print the money. In the end, I'm going to share a little bit how we can get out of it. So stick around to the end, because I know you're going to want to learn more about how this affects interest rates, because if you're looking to buy a home, refi a home, buy an investment property, this can affect you too. I know this sounds dumb, but what is a deficit? You guys might know it, I might know it, but look, I got to explain it. So a deficit pretty much is debt. So you and I, maybe you have a credit card, maybe you have student loans, maybe you have a mortgage, maybe you have a car payment, right? But let's just think of it as a credit card. So you and I have a credit card. Let's just say we have a deficit. So if I earn $100,000 a year, but I spend $300,000 a year, that would mean I'd have to go into debt $200,000 a year to maintain this lifestyle. So for example, the federal government, they take in about $5 trillion a year and they spend $7 trillion a year, which is insane because that's an insane amount of money, but they're actually going in debt $2 trillion a year. And let me just explain that. Not only are they going in debt $2 trillion a year, the money that they from 5 trillion to 7 trillion, all that money being spent, we are financing it. We are putting it on the balance sheet of some other person that gave it to us. We're putting it on our debt sheet and we are paying interest on it. So it's not like we just pay it and we're done. We get the money, we pay the bills, and then we start paying the interest on that. So it's like, when you bought a piece of furniture or you bought let's say you bought a TV, right? A flat screen TV. You went into Best Buy. You said, cool, give me the Best Buy card. You put the $1,000 on there. And you go, cool. And they said, oh, the interest is this. So you put it on your credit card and you paid $1,000 for the TV, but you paid the minimum payment on that TV for 3-4 years. And you finally I paid it off. But what you didn't know is maybe you paid $2,000 for the TV because of the interest. So the United States, we're not only paying our bills, we're borrowing money to pay all this other bills. We're borrowing money to pay the interest. So we are spending out of control. And so the deficit is just getting worse and worse and worse as we go along. So the next question we have to ask ourselves, okay, The government takes in 5 trillion. They spend 7 trillion. How does the government pay for the shortfall? Like, how does this actually work? Because we pay our bills. We're paying it. So how would you, if you made $100,000 a year and you paid, and you spend $300,000 a year, how would you pay the $200,000? Well, for you and I, we'd have to go rob a bank. We'd have to go ask mom and dad. We'd have to go borrow the money from friends and family. We put on a credit card. I mean, there's many ways we could do it. But as the government, what options do they have? Let's just say does have an unlimited credit card, because that's the only way to describe it, because otherwise there's no right way to explain it. But let's say their credit card are treasuries, bonds, notes, T-bills, things like that. That is their credit card. They have to go sell those to get money. So basically when the government needs money, they kind of go, hey, world. And the world goes, yes, US government, I need money. How much do you need? 2 trillion. Oh, by the way, and I'm willing to pay interest, and we have a really good rating because we always pay our bills on time. And the world comes back and says, okay, we'll give you 2 trillion. And how is that 2 trillion made up of? Well, let's go through it. So who is buying this $2 trillion? Well, big banks, pension funds, regular people like you and me. Yes, you didn't even know it, but you do. Other countries, you've heard of China, Japan, other countries. Why? Because they think the US is safe. If they give them money, we're going to pay them back. We're going to pay the interest. We're always going to pay the bills. That's why people keep lending, because we've always paid our debts on time. Never missed a payment. Even the Federal Reserve. Yes, the Fed. You ever heard of Jerome Powell? Ever heard of that guy? Mr. Powell? Don't worry, we're going to get to them, how they do it, because how they do it is different than anybody else. And it's going to blow your mind, because you're going to be like, wait a minute, Kenny, is this true? This sounds like a bunch of BS. Well, folks, wait till you dive into it, because I thought at first it was not true. And then I had to research more and more about it. And then I come to find out the way the feds print money is the most insane thing you've ever heard of. With all this money printing, how does it work? Do we just hit like Control P and then boom, money appears? I mean, that's kind of the way it seems, because otherwise, how do we do this? How do we keep getting so much in debt, print all this money? The money printing causes inflation, all this stuff. Like, how do we do it? So let's dive into exactly. We now know what deficit is. We now know who's buying the debt. Now we're going to figure out, how do we print that money, and who is printing the money, and how does it work? So the US government does not print money like Monopoly. It's not like that. What they do is they do it digitally. Wait a minute, Kenny, are you saying they just can go in and add numbers to somebody's bank account and say you have money? Let's say you're buying your own IOU. Do you know what IOU stands for? Basically, it means I owe you, I'm going to pay you back. You ever heard of that? Like, you know the movie Dumb and Dumber, where he's like, has the Lamborghini. He says, hey, you might want to keep that IOU. You write an IOU to yourself. You said, I'm going to pay you back $100 in 1 year. Then you buy it yourself, and now you have imaginary money. You have $100 imaginary. Boom, you just created it. And now you have $100 to spend. That sounds weird. That is how the money machine works. You've heard of quantitative easing. We went through a thing called the pandemic, and they started handing out money and started printing money and all that stuff. That's how it works. So what's the point of the money printing? Why go through it? And what is this all about? During recessions, pandemics, economic slowdown, the government needs to stimulate fast, right? Boom, they got to get it going. Creating money or borrowing money helps sending out stimulus checks, fund unemployment, keep interest rates low so people can buy and refi homes. Remember, like in 2020, 21, 22, when rates were like all-time low, they had the printing press on. So what's the good side of printing money? Well, the good side of printing money is helps in a crisis like 2020 or in 2008. They can help us get out of crazy situations quickly by injecting money into the economy, whether they're giving it to banks to lend, they're giving it to individuals to spend, they're helping bail out businesses, whatever it is, or they can buy down rates. The feds can give out money and turn a dying economy into boom stimulus and help us get out of it, so it's a less impact or a depression or a meltdown. But obviously when you spend this money, you do this as we're now feeling the hangover from COVID and stuff. What does it create? Well, let's dive into the bad of printing money. $6 gas, $8 eggs, rent exploding, house prices exploding, right? Inflation exploding. You guys get the drift. So there's good, but if you do too much of it, it becomes a bad thing. So the debt is approaching $37 trillion. That means that each one of us that live in the US, yes, we are in debt over $100,000 if you actually divided it by everybody. So we owe the government over $100,000. Yippee! And the other bad thing about this, if the countries or us or pension funds or Wall Street firms or insurance companies, the ones that are buying this debt that allow us to keep getting in debt that they love because we keep paying back, if we miss a payment, if they lose confidence in the US, they might still buy our debt, but they're also the one bad thing that a lot of people don't know and don't talk about is as we get bigger and bigger into debt. So if we go from 37 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, and what I'm worried about when you hit 60, a lot of people might go, ooh, the economy doesn't look good in the US. Ooh, I don't know if they're going to pay their bills. Ooh, their interest payments are now $2 trillion a year. If people start to lose confidence in the US, they are going to demand higher rates. That means higher treasury returns to buy that debt. And what that would mean, that'd be higher mortgage, car, student loans, business loans, credit cards, HELOCs, you name it, higher rates across the board. That's not a good thing. When I started this video, I mentioned that getting into massive debt is a major, major no-no. And one of the things that worries me is if you get to, let's say you get to $60 trillion and we cannot pay our bills, we miss a payment. That would mean any new debt, we'd have to have higher rates. So that 10-year treasury today that sits at 4.5 or 4.25, that could go to 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, it could, because you'd have to entice people to buy the debt. So now all of a sudden your debt payment could go from 2 trillion to 3 trillion. And then you hit a depression, you can't bring in the funds. So we'd be borrowing to save, and then you have to start cutting things. So this is why I make my point. Dealing with the deficit today is a must. If you're in real estate and you want mortgage rates and interest rates or anything, you deal with your business, anything you want rates to come down, keep stacking up a deficit like this, eventually will cause rates to go sky high and we will be in major, major problems. How do we fix this? How do we get out of it? And can we fix this? So think about this. Why do we keep doing this? Why don't we stop? Well, the other problem is everybody knows that the US is the currency of the world and that everybody wants our money. Everybody wants to be in the US. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to be here. They want to invest here. They want to buy our debt. So we always have buyers. But the day we show up to sell our treasuries, you don't have buyers. That would mean we'd have to raise the rates to get buyers. So here's the thing. It's easier for us to go out and keep getting our debt funded. And the feds, as I mentioned before, they literally come in, they basically type in their computer and say, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, Chase, I just gave you all $100 billion. Cool. You're going to buy those treasuries. Cool. And then you can take the money and go lend it out to the people. Huh? Yes, the Federal Reserve can literally, just like I said, your IOU, they can create money from thin air and it does not go towards a deficit. It goes on their balance sheet. The feds can do that. The feds have the ability to print money because they are the bank of the US. They're all the ends all be all. So we can keep this going forever. But how do you get out of this, right? Number one, you can inflate your way out of this. Just like you see everything getting more and more and more expensive. And when things get more and more expensive, the debt seems less and less and less, right? The dollar. So you can inflate your way out of it. Guess what? That's a lose-lose for most people. Number two, we can just say the government wakes up and says, you know what, everybody, you owe us $100,000 and we demand our money now. And they're going to start seizing your properties, your house, your bank accounts, your business, and say, we want our money right now. They're going to take whatever they can get. Let's create and then grab the money and pay down the debt. What's the chance of like happening? I don't think so. I don't think that happened. What's option number three? We actually cut cost. That's why you see Doge coming in. Let's cut the cost. Let's cut the waste, the spending. They think that, hey, if we're spending $5 trillion, there's got to be 25% waste. There's $1 trillion. And then we got to basically say, how can we either make more money, somehow make another money in the market, right? Another $1 trillion. And then can we cut costs, things like that. So you got to make more money, cut costs to balance the budget. If you can balance the budget, then we can stop borrowing the money. But still, how are we going to get there fast enough? One of the other things they thought of is something like, hey, we'll sell for $5 million. We're going to sell you this gold Visa. And if we sell, 5 or 7 million of them, we can be able to take the money, pay off the debt, and we're debt free. But folks, at the end of the day, you and I are in real estate if you're watching this and you care about what is going on with the debt, how money's created, how the feds can keep printing it, how all these politicians know this, how we know there's always a buyer on the other end. And if we need more, if we need to entice some more, we can bring it up. If we can't find them, we'll just get the feds come in, print the fake money, buy the treasuries, and we can keep funding this deficit over and over again. And the politicians and a lot of the people, they love this. Like, why don't we just keep doing that? Because it's easier. What's not fun is cutting the deficit and pulling back and changing everything and doing this whole thing. If you ever gone to your house and somebody lost a house, you got to go, we got to stop spending money, or a business. It doesn't feel good. It's painful. But at the end of the road, how are we going to get interest rates down if we keep putting money in the economy that shouldn't be there? That's called inflation. We need to take care of our debts. We need to figure out how to balance a budget, start paying off our deficit, because at the end of the day, if we don't do this in the short term, sure, we can get some lower rates and help us out. But in the long term, as you can see, we're eventually going to hit a ceiling, and we're going to hit a problem where we're not going to be able to have low interest rates because we have bigger problems. We're not going to be able to fund Medicare. We're not going to be able to fund Social Security. We're not going to be able to help all these other places we do. We're not going to be able to even pay for our essential things here in the US. So with that being said, I hope you guys understand a little bit more how money is created, how deficits work, how we actually spend, how we actually bail ourselves out, exactly literally create money or have to go out there and borrow it. But at the end of the day, think about this. We are borrowing $2 trillion a year and we're paying interest on it to pay those bills. So imagine you make $100,000 a year and you spend $300,000, the $200,000 you keep accumulating up, you're paying interest on. And eventually one day, if you don't make enough money, or if you don't have a win, if you don't have an exit, or you don't have a solution how to get out of that, you're just going to file bankruptcy. Just like you could go BK and all your creditors are doomed and they get nothing, the feds could say, you know what? Or the government say, we file BK. We're not going to pay anybody. We're out. And that would be terrible. That means when nobody want to buy our debt, having interest rates remain low would be almost impossible. And also having to go through that traumatic time, it's just not worth it. So, hey, I want to help educate everybody on how things work, because the more things people understand how they work, how money flows, and how we can actually improve our system. So again, we got to cut the waste, we got to cut the fraud, we got to cut the overspending, we got to get our deficit down, we got to balance our budget. And that way we can help bring interest rates down, the cost of living down and things like that. So we can go to more of a well-balanced economy, let's say, where people can afford things. You can sell your house, buy another house, and things aren't all whack. So when rates go really low and rates go really high, or the house values go really low or really high, it's never a good thing. These highs and lows always have a good and a bad ending, right? And so we're felt the good, and now you're feeling the bad ending, where people cannot buy homes, they can't afford homes, anything like that. So anyways, I appreciate you guys watching, and share this with somebody. I'd love to hear any comments below, and we will talk soon.